and special. Good afternoon. Welcome to West Basin Water Policy and Legislation Committee and Special Board of Directors meeting. Do we have a quorum? I'm calling this meeting to order. Do we have a quorum, Mr. General Manager?
Madam Chair, I'll read through the roll call. Director Don Deere. Here. Director Gloria Gray.
Here.
Director Scott Houston. Director Tommy Favai. Here. Director Desi Alvarez. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I believe the next item is public comment. Anyone
Yes,
from the
Madam
public
Chair.
who wishes to speak?
We have not received any requests for public comment, though this meeting is being held both in person and virtually. If there's any member of the public that would like to speak under public comment, please indicate so by raising your virtual hand. And Madam Chair, I do not see any requests.
All right, thank you. Is the next item presentations?
Staff has no presentations today.
All right, next item, action items.
And we have no action items today.
And what's the next item, please?
Yes, Madam Chair, the next item is item 6A. It's an update on Metropolitan Water District's Stormwater for Recharge Pilot Program Agreement for the Culver Boulevard Realignment and Stormwater Filtration and Retention Project. And for this presentation, we do have Tammy Hurley-High, our Senior Water Policy and Resources Analyst, as well as Sean Singletary, the Environmental Programs and Operations Manager for the City of Culver City. This item begins on packet page 3.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Gray, Member Deere, and I'm happy to provide a report to you today, an update on the Culver City Stormwater Capture Project. And as EJ had mentioned, joining us here today, we're lucky to have Sean Singletary from City, who is the Environmental Programs and Operations Manager for the city, who oversees this project. And he's here to answer any technical questions that you may have. So in addition, there are PowerPoint slides that begin on page 8 of the packet to help update in this report. Thank you. So on the first slide, I'll just give a bit of a background. So a few years ago, Metropolitan had launched a Stormwater for Direct Use pilot program. And the primary purpose of this program is to offer financial incentives for local projects to collect stormwater capture data and provide to Metropolitan in an effort to gain a better understanding of the relationship between stormwater capture and the yield of new water supply. And the eligible project could be an existing stormwater system with a new retrofit or a new construction of a stormwater capture system. Next slide, please. So through this pilot program, Metropolitan provides financial incentive for construction of new direct use stormwater capture projects, which include metering to measure the volume of water captured and what is used or reused to offset the use of potable water. And Metropolitan's total contribution for this project is capped at $500,000. And that covers cost reimbursements for a portion of construction, along with 3 annual monitoring reports. And when the program was launched, the selection criteria was limited as to how many local projects could participate in this pilot program. And Metropolitan had a desire to review data from projects located throughout several climate zones. So West Basin and the City of Culver City entered into a 3-way agreement with Metropolitan, which is set to expire this year, December 31st, 2025. And as this project requires annual monitoring reports, the parties have been working together to request a time extension to demonstrate the system's performance of capturing urban runoff and treatment for irrigation. So I have another two slides. I'd like to offer Sean an opportunity to provide an update, a little bit more technical information on the project. So we can go to the next slide. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Tammy, and thank you to West Basin for your support for this project. This is a profile view of our project as installed. The project was initiated as part of a roadway widening project adjacent to the 405 in Culver City in the late 2000s. And we had a forward-thinking public works director at that time who proposed a stormwater project, as long as we were already disturbing the area, to implement a stormwater capture project along with the road widening. So the funding for the $18 million project was assembled over the next years, and a design was undertaken. New treatment options were considered. Infiltration did not work with the soils in the area, and sewer diversion was not selected. So filtration with a treat and release was the ultimate treatment method for this project. So diverted runoff is pre-treated by hydrodynamic separators. Runoff enters the separation chamber and creates a swirling vortex against filter screens that retain floatables and neutrally buoyant debris larger than the screen aperture. It sounds very technical, and we actually had some challenges with that process as designed. After that point, screen stormwater moves into a settling area with a baffle designed to separate hydrocarbons from the runoff. So at that point, after pretreatment, runoff enters the large lined subsurface vaults or chambers. They're 10 feet tall, and there's a total storage capacity of 8 cubic feet between the two large underground chambers. Runoff is stored here until it's pumped to the primary treatment mechanism, which is filtration, as well as an irrigation well. So stormwater is treated at a rate of up to almost 6 cubic feet per second, using 2 cartridge filters to remove pollutants of concern, and then return to the storm drain. So a major benefit of the project is along with the improvement of the 2-acre median above it, was being able to irrigate this area with captured runoff. So when we went online after construction, we had 12,000 square feet of drip line, 50 tree bubbler assemblies, 23,000 square feet of mulch, and almost 36,000 plants that were installed as part of the project. So it's quite a bit of landscaping, a couple $1 million worth, and it's all being irrigated with captured runoff. I think some part to the grant from West Basin. Next slide. So this slide gives a couple more technical details about the project. The project drains 800 acres upstream. A portion of it's Culver City, and a portion of it is the city of Los Angeles. There's a diversion rate of 25 cubic feet per second for 2 diversions, so a total of 50 cubic feet per second. The chambers hold 8 acre feet of runoff, and the system can treat 11 acre feet actively during a storm. So there's a total treatment of 19 acre feet if it is raining and storing at the same time. The annual runoff capture volume is 187 acre feet a year, and our leading pollutant is zinc. We reduce 82 pounds per year of zinc, along with other metals in smaller volumes such as copper and lead. And we are able to offset the use of 227,000 gallons monthly of potable water with reclaimed water. Kick it back over to you, Tammy.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Sean. Thanks for that information. Very detailed. So I'll take a quick break. Are there any questions at all from the committee before we move on? We have some photos to show you.
Are there any questions? Director Darren, Director Labatt. Anyone?
No, it
All
doesn't
right,
look like
thank
it.
you.
Okay, thank you. Sure, great.
Thank you.
So we have 2 more slides that show a handful of photos. So I'll just let Sean describe that now.
Sure. Yeah. So I took some photos just last week. So these are very updated. On the right, the left here, sorry, this is one of our educational signage that's placed throughout the project. And we have an augmented reality feature. So there's QR codes on all the signs through the project area that you can activate with your phone. for different topics. So this particular one is water quality, stormwater. So you hold your phone up to it, you can kind of swim around, underneath into the chamber, and it has a connection to the ocean. So, it's helpful for children, but it's also educational, for adults as well. There's other educational signage about the history of the area, transportation, and land use. So it kind of covers everything that's happening in the project area. And on the right, that's our bike path. So there's a separated bike path and a pedestrian path through the area. These are a couple additional photos. You can see the bike path on the left, the pedestrian path on the right, and in the middle, I try to get a close-up of some of the irrigation tubing. The water is filtered, but it's not treated to a level where we can spray. So we have drip irrigation throughout the project, and it's very lush and attractive. So we haven't had any issues with the runoff not being able to irrigate the plantings appropriately.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you. Okay, so this slide, just wanted to show you the timeline schedule. So we can see here, this is the next following schedule for everything, the reporting requirements for the project. And so since the completion of construction, there has been a lot of progress that has been made, as you've already heard. However, there have been delays. The system has experienced significant storm systems that resulted in excessive collection of trash and debris. But now that the trash has been removed and the irrigation well has been cleaned, the stormwater capture irrigation system is operating as intended. So we're ready to continue moving forward on this process. Metropolitan staff will be bringing this to the board during the fall of 2025 timeframe for consideration of a timeline extension to the agreement. And Metropolitan staff will include the first 2 months of data monitoring that we have out, the city has already been provided. And this will just demonstrate that the project does have the ability to utilize metering. The next slide, please. Thank you. So I just wanted to recap a few photos. So there was a ribbon cutting event that took place a few years ago in June 2022. West Basin co-hosted this celebratory event, recognizing the benefits and the water savings that the project will achieve. There were several elected officials and staff were in attendance, which included our the Metropolitan Board Chair, Gloria Gray, Metropolitan Director, Representative Beverly Hills, Director Barry Pressman, West Basin Director Scott Houston, Culver City Mayor and Council members, Beverly Hills City Council members, and Wyona Creek Renaissance, and representative from the Office of Supervisor Holly Mitchell, and a representative from the Office of Assembly Member Isaac Ryan. So after the event, city staff had offered tours of the project to attendees and members of the public so that they could learn more information about that project. So in conclusion, we have been working very closely with Culver City and Metropolitan to ensure that the project is a success. And we look forward to the project moving into the monitoring phase. We do appreciate Metropolitan staff and management team allowing the project to move forward despite some unforeseen delays. So that wraps up our update on this project, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation, both of you. Are there any questions, board members?
Yeah, I have a question, Chair Gray.
Yes, please, Director.
EJ, how
Yes.
much was our West Basin financial grant considered for this project?
So it's important to note that West Basin did not contribute. However, the total for Metropolitan Water District, what was it?
500,000, 440,000 for the initial, and then 20,000 for each of the 3 monitoring years. So total of 500.
Thank you. That's it, Chair Gray.
Oh, thank you, Director. Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you. Thank you very much, staff. EJ, what's the next item, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. The next item is 6B. It's our monthly state and federal legislative update. For these presentations, we do have Augustine Hahn, our Water Policy and Resources Development Analyst, providing our state update, and then Matt Bay, our Manager of Water Policy and Resources, presenting the federal update. This item begins on packet page 17.
Thank you, EJ. President Gray, members of the board, the state report will begin on page 19 of the agenda packet. Move on to the next slide, please. And the next one. Yeah, so just provide a brief update on the legislative session this year. State legislature has passed a few key deadlines over the past few months. So far this session, we've seen a little under 2,800 bills that have been introduced. 280 of those bills have failed to advance from the first House policy committees by the May 2nd deadline. Another 337 bills have failed to advance from the first House fiscal committee deadline by May 23rd. And another 11 bills have failed to advance from the first House altogether by the June 6th deadline. As you can see on the slides, the graph, you can see how the legislative session compares with the two previous sessions. The comparison shows that the House floor deadlines don't typically stop many bills. We also see that a relatively high number were stopped in the fiscal committees this year, which could be due in part to the state budget. This past Thursday was the deadline for bills to advance from the second House policy committees. And the legislators are now on summer recess and will return August 18th. If we could move to the next slide, please. Next, I'll provide an update regarding Delta Conveyance. You'll recall that West Basin has been active in supporting the governor's May budget trailer bill, which sought to streamline the permitting for the DCP. Last month, we reported that the legislature had reached a two-way budget deal on June 9th, which deferred action on the DCP streamlining. Staff remains focused on advocacy efforts and continues to work with the coalition to build support for when negotiations are set to continue in August. I'll just mention that staff has held meetings with staff members from the Assembly member Rick Chavez Spur and also with Assembly member Tina McKinner's offices in this time. We'll move on to the next slide, please. So as previously mentioned last month, the state legislature reached a two-way agreement on the budget. That's to say the state Senate and the Assembly reached an agreement. And so this kicked off negotiations with the governor's office, which resulted in an ultimate three-way deal on June 24th. The governor signed this budget bill on June 30th, and this deal filled the estimated $12 billion deficit in the budget, while avoiding some steep cuts to higher education and healthcare services. However, I should mention that the deal was reached before the federal spending bill was passed. That spending bill includes cuts to Medicaid, which UC Berkeley estimates could cost California $10 to $20 billion. On to the next slide, please. On June 24th, the governor and DWR released the semi-annual groundwater conditions update. This report includes information on statewide groundwater levels, groundwater storage, recharge, land subsidence, well infrastructure, and the status of California's groundwater conditions, utilizing data provided by groundwater sustainability agencies under SGMA. This update shows that the groundwater storage increased by 2.2 million acre feet in water year 2024. The governor stated that despite this, California still lacks the water infrastructure needed to ensure the state is prepared for a hotter, drier future and to provide Californians with the water they need. He reiterated that DCP is one of the most important climate adaptation projects in state history. On to the next slide, please. Another update regarding the Delta. In October 2024, golden mussels were detected in the Sacramento Bay Delta. Similar to quagga mussels, golden mussels attach to pipes, pumps, and facilities in dense clusters. They can alter food webs and also promote harmful algal blooms, forcing costly closures of lakes and reservoirs for recreation. This invasive species requires expensive control measures that can impact water affordability. West Basin signed onto a coalition letter requesting golden mussels to be included alongside quagga mussels in existing regulatory frameworks and to request state funding to support control efforts. Move on to the next slide, please. And just an update from our bill report. I'll run through these pretty quickly here. You'll recall that SB 72 is a proposal that would require the California Water Plan include a range of water supply targets with the 50-year planning horizon at a watershed scale and a cost-benefit analysis of any project type or action to help achieve those targets. This bill was sponsored by CMUA, and West Basin Board adopted a support position back in February. This bill has passed out of the second House Policy Committee and is still active, and we'll continue to track this bill. The next bill is SB 31, which would clarify and expand uses under the recycled water policy. This bill is sponsored by Water Reuse California, and the West Basin Board adopted a support position in March. This bill has passed out of the second House Policy Committee as well and is still active. SB 454 is a proposal to create the PFAS Mitigation Fund. This bill is sponsored by the League of Cities and by AQUA. West Basin Board took a support position in this last month, and the bill has also made it out of the second House Policy Committee deadline and is still active. SB 601 is related to water quality. It seeks to create waters of the state. This bill is sponsored by Coast Keepers and Defenders of Wildlife and is a bill that staff have been actively tracking. This bill also passed out of the second House Policy Committee and is still active. This bill has taken several amendments along the way, but there are still big concerns. And so this is a bill that we'll continue to track and keep the board updated on. AB 580 allows Metropolitan Water District to file a single permit for their earth moving operations conducted on lands it owns or leases. This is associated with the Colorado River Aqueduct. This is a bill that West Basin took a support on back in March. This bill too has been advancing and is still active. It's minor edits or minor amendments related to the sunset date of the policy. That concludes the state update, and I'm happy to take any questions on the state update at this time.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
None.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. There's no questions. Any further reporting?
Yes, we'll segue to the federal affairs update.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, EJ, and good afternoon, Chair Gray and directors. I'll get into the federal update now. Go to the next slide, please. So we're at the point in the summer where Congress is getting ready to go on its 1 month or 5-week break. So at the end of this, maybe not at the end of this week, but next week, they are expected to go on their summer break until early September after Labor Day. Both the House and the Senate will mostly be dark in August. They could always call folks back, but this is usually kind of the period of the year when the legislators will spend a little more time in their home districts. And so staff is looking at doing some outreach possibly during this time. When we go back and we meet with their offices in Washington, D.C., we usually do a good job of inviting them to tour the district, to tour our facility. So this will give us a chance to kind of check in with some of the district offices and see if there's any ability to do that. And then also this year, being that it's our 30th anniversary for recycled water, we also want to check in to see if we can possibly arrange for some commendations or recognitions of our recycled water program. So staff will be kind of conducting some of that outreach during this time as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so you probably heard that the big tax and spending package known as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act was signed into law a couple, 2-3 weeks ago. This is the 900-page reconciliation bill, so there's a lot going on with it. I'm not going to get into the details about it, but just to know that it was a very close vote. Took a lot of wrangling to get it to be passed, especially in the Senate. It was a 51-50 vote, which means that the vice president actually had to provide the deciding vote. We saw that happen occasionally with the last administration, with former Vice President Kamala Harris doing that at times. However, I believe this is the first kind of major vote where Vice President J.D. Vance has had to kind of cast a deciding vote. And then in the House, again, it was a very, very slim margin there, 218 to 214, as you can see. But once it made it through both of those houses, it was signed by President Trump on 4th of July. Again, I'm not going to give all the details, but I will just mention that it does include $1 billion for the Department of the Interior, which we have an interest in with our water programs, to build or expand upon the Bureau of Recs water storage and conveyance facilities. It also pares down a number of clean energy and other tax credits over the next couple of years that will impact not only kind of personal individual level, but at more of the corporate and government levels as well. So something that we'll continue to hear about in the coming months and coming years. Due to your attention, if there's something updating you on. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have a newly nominated U.S. Bureau of Reclamation Commissioner. This is something that's been in the works for a while now. I think they've been kind of vetting different folks over the last 6 months at least. But it looks like we finally have somebody here in Ted Cook, who was nominated by the Trump administration as the next commissioner of the Bureau of Rec. Mr. Cook has 2 decades of previous experience at the Central Arizona Project. So, he's very familiar with Western water issues, with drought, some of the programs that U.S. Bureau of Rec offers to Western states, to water agencies. He also is very familiar with the Colorado River and all the issues that it's facing. And obviously, his nomination is occurring when the 7 Colorado River Basin states are actively negotiating a new operating plan for post 2026, which is coming up very quickly next year. And just kind of based on some of the things that we've been hearing recently, both from Metropolitan and others, there's a lot of challenges with the negotiations, not moving forward as quickly as folks would hope for. So the new commissioner is going to have to play a big role in all of the different parties, both, I think at the 7-state level, but also within each of the different, basins, the lower and the upper basin states to try to make some progress on that over the next year. Again, I think the big preference is that the 7 states come up with their own consensus solution for this. However, Mr. Cook might have to work with his team to insert themselves and get it across the finish line. So he's coming in at a very pivotal time for the Colorado River. All right, next slide. Okay, I talked about the big bill, and now there's also work going on for the next year for FY 2026. So kind of the appropriations bills, there's want to say 12 or 13 different bills that usually go forward and get hashed out between the House and the Senate. One that West Basin and our, water industry kind of cares about the most is usually the House Energy and Water Appropriations Committee. So last week, they advanced their kind of the markup bill out of the subcommittee. This is the appropriations bill that funds Bureau of Rec and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, both departments that we receive funding from, be it through grants or be it through appropriations. And as you can see here, the Bureau of Rec was allocated about $1.9 billion, very slight increase from kind of the current funding level, but this is a reminder that the current funding level is a long-term continuing resolution. So they did not pass any appropriations bills the previous year. So I think they would like to have seen more money than they're currently at, but it's a slight increase there. And then the U.S. Army Corps was allocated almost $10 billion in this bill, which is a pretty significant $1 billion increase. However, again, this is just kind of the first step. It then has to go to the full committee and then to the full House and Senate for ultimate passage, which won't occur until later this year, if not in calendar year 2026. Just to highlight a couple of the funding areas here in the Bureau of Rec, we have $30 million for the Title 16 program, which is often for recycled water, used to be desalination. That might be split out now, but those types of projects. And then $14 million for the Water Smart grants, which is good to see because we currently have Water Smart grants for some of our conservation programs. And we had heard that currently there's no kind of Water Smart grants that are out there for application right now. However, if they get this included in the ultimate funding bill, that would mean that there will be future opportunities to apply for those types of grants. It's good to see that in there. $18 million for desalination programs, projects, and then $50 million for the Colorado River Drought Contingency Funding Program. And then also just wanted to note that the EPA was also allocated $7 billion in this. However, that is a big decrease. There's a lot of changes happening at EPA right now that you might have heard of. And funding is definitely a concern for them. And so you can see here that that $7 billion is a pretty significant reduction from what it was currently or before. All right, and then my last slide, just to talk a little bit about PFAS and the EPA. Kind of briefed you on these types of issues over the last year, but EPA has currently filed a motion, or just a couple of weeks ago filed a motion asking for a time extension to decide on an approach for how to hold PFAS polluters responsible for cleanup. This is kind of what's known as the polluters pay principle. That's something that West Basin supports. West Basin and others like us who don't produce or manufacture PFAS materials, but we do and can receive PFAS contaminated water. That is an issue in a lot of other basins in Southern California. These are known as passive receivers. And so we've worked very hard with our partners to make sure that we're not held accountable or, we don't have to pay for any of the cleanup costs that the government says needs to be done because of these chemicals. And so that's something that the agency is, seeking to do. And they have some updated plans that they're working on right now that are expected to be announced in the fall. Something that we've kind of benefited from in the past is some of these proposed legislative bills related to PFAS liability protection. Those are bills that West Basin has actively supported in past legislative sessions. So this kind of falls in that same area in terms of seeking protections for utilities like West Basin. There's also some other updated regulations that are anticipated to be announced in that same fall timeline that we'll keep you apprised of. And then finally, there was PFAS legislation introduced in the House just recently that would codify the EPA drinking water regulations for PFAS. This considers the MCLs or maximum contaminant levels. The EPA administration had previously said that they wanted to change some of the MCLs for some of the different types of PFAS chemicals. There's a number of different ones, I think 7. But they also wanted to maybe lower some of the standards that had previously been set under the previous administration. But then they also wanted to delay implementation of those regulations to an extra year or two. It would give folks to come into compliance with those MCLs, like PFOA and PFOS. So that's a lot's going to be done over the next few months in terms of PFAS, and we'll keep you updated on where that is. And with that, that concludes our state and federal update, and we're happy to take any final questions from the committee.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Are there any questions?
The
Director?
man, I have a question about the man from,
Yes, please.
that's in that, the newly appointed member of the committee for the federal government. Is he gonna favor his state, do you think?
I think they're supposed to be bipartisan and impartial, but he's very familiar with Arizona. He knows how it operates. But he probably has a lot of good relationships with some of the other states, certainly with California and Nevada, with those lower basin states. But he's going to have to try to navigate the ship with all 7 states. So, certainly he might have his own ideas of how it should work, but, he's really going to have to build a consensus, because if he just goes with one, what one state wants, it's not going to.
It's gonna be a challenge.
It's going to be a challenge. Yeah, you're right. Yep.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, that concludes item 6B.
All right,
And
thank you
brings
very,
us to, oh, go ahead.
go on. No, go on, please.
I was going to say that brings us to item 6C. It's the final item in our information calendar. This is our monthly Metropolitan Water District programs update. For this presentation, we have Tammy Hurley-High, our Senior Water Policy and Resources Analyst. And this item begins on packet page 54.
So we provide updated information about metropolitan activities. And so in addition to the report, there are PowerPoint slides that began on page 66 of the committee packet to help guide updates. So just want to share with you that on July 1st, you see earlier this month, Metropolitan released their annual drinking water quality report. And Metropolitan safeguards the public drinking water source as described in the Federal Safe Drinking Water Act. Metropolitan operates 5 treatment plants, which disinfect more than 2 billion gallons of water daily. Their laboratory tests water supplied for 120 regulated contaminants and about 289 regulated constituents. The annual report provides information on the constituents in the water, along with how it looks, it smells, and it tastes. And so their annual report lists the maximum levels allowed by the state and federal regulations and the levels down throughout their distribution system. So each year, Metropolitan produces over 250,000 water quality test results. It's a big undertaking, and we wanted to share that with you. That report is accessible through the report. There is a link to access it online. Next slide, please. All right, so business model refinements. We wanted to provide an update on the 4 voting results of 2 items that we proposed at the Finance Committee, along with the informational items that we provided during the One Water and Adaptation Committee. So as reported before, Metropolitan has convened an ad hoc working group composed of the general managers and Metropolitan member agencies, and Metropolitan board directors have been meeting regularly to review potential refinement to the business model. So from this effort, there were 3 sub-working groups that have been formed. Those include the finance sub-working group, the water resources, and engineering sub-working group. So the finance subworking group has identified areas to enhance metropolitan long-term financial stability. And these include the treated water cost recovery and their unrestricted reserve policy. And so last month in June, a set of alternative for charges related to treatment, peaking, and the treatment standby charge, as were proposed by the member agencies, were presented under 2 options for consideration. So this month, earlier in July, the board voted to approve option 1 for the treated water cost recovery rate structure. So this action will recover about 30% of metropolitan treatment revenues by establishing a cost recovery structure for treated water. And this introduces 3 fixed charges that include the peaking capacity charge, the used standby capacity charge, and the remaining standby capacity charge. So this new fixed charge, this adjustment, it will reduce revenue volatility associated with fluctuating water demand. And it will be included on the upcoming biannual budget that the board will be considering next April. So I wanted to provide an update for you on that. We can move to the next slide, please. So in addition, the board also approved revision to Metropolitan Reserve Policy. And the finance subworking group recommended aligning the reserve percentage with the budgeted exceedance level. And so, for example, the higher the exceedance level, the lower the mortality, which would allow for a lower reserve percentage in the calculation. And so the subworking group recommended that Metropolitan establish a policy that water demand projections as 70% exceedance for rate setting and with a long-term target of 80%. So after deliberation, the board approved revision to the reserve policy to implement 70% exceedance level sales projection for the proposed upcoming biannual budget for the next 2 years. And then it will go up to 80% for fiscal year 28-29 and the 29-30 biannual budget. And then following with an 80% exceedance level for subsequent budgets. So gradually implementing a higher exceedance level of 80% in rate setting, this will help to reduce the risks that are associated with variability in the volumetric sales. And this approach will create a mechanism to maintain the reserve at the target level, providing additional protection against rate spikes or any emergency rate adjustments that could happen. So we'll move on to the next item. If we can go to the next slide, please. So local supply exchange framework. As I mentioned earlier, the 3 subworking group, they were established to review potential refinement to the business model. And the concept of a local supply framework emerged from the water resources subworking group. And they recommended that Metropolitan should support a local supply exchange or exchanges between member agencies by directing Metropolitan staff to develop a framework to support these exchanges. This was an information item that was brought to the One Water and Adaptation Committee this month. Using feedback from the board directors. Metropolitan has received feedback from member agencies that there is an additional local supply production capability and that other member agencies are interested in purchasing these local supplies. So currently there is no physical infrastructure that connects one member agency supply to another member agency in order to deliver that supply. However, Metropolitan does have that infrastructure. They're able to connect all of its member agencies as a resale wholesale water agency. Because of this, Metropolitan can assist in facilitating the exchange between the member agencies. So the way the program would work is that the seller would produce and consume the local supply within their service area. And then in exchange, Metropolitan would deliver imported water equivalent to that local supply amount to the buyer production. The seller and buyer would enter into an agreement to coordinate the sale and exchange of the water. Then Metropolitan and the seller would enter into an agreement. The seller would purchase Metropolitan supplies, which would be sold to the buyer. The seller would receive payment from the buyer for that local supply they are selling, and they would be exchanging delivery of Metropolitan water from their own service area to the buyer's service area. The buyer would receive delivery and the benefits of Metropolitan supply that they can purchase. Move to the next slide, please. So an update on the Pure Water Southern California program. A quarterly update on the program was provided in July to the Engineering Operations and Technology Committee. And there are several activities lined up, which will be brought to the board each month throughout the remainder of this year to provide information necessary for board consideration in early 2026. This slide shows the program schedule. There has been significant progress made on the program since the last quarterly update. And this includes the release of the draft EIR, which had a 60-day review period. And also we wanted to let you know that West Basin staff has worked together to review the EIR, and West Basin has submitted comments to Metropolitan on July 14th. And recently, Metropolitan held a workshop with member agencies to discuss the term sheets for delivery of the water. And there will be a board workshop scheduled for tomorrow, Tuesday, July 22nd at 1:30. They'll be reviewing more on the site. So Metropolitan staff is also identifying other funding opportunities, such as a WIPIA loan consideration. This program is administered by the Environmental Protection Agency, and they have $6.5 billion in lending capacity, and Metropolitan could ask to finance up to 49% of the project cost. So more information on this is anticipated to be presented next month, which will include the application process that involves a letter of interest. In addition, IPR testing continued to make operational improvements at the facility. And for the planning of the DPR testing facility, Metropolitan has conducted a value engineering workshop last month to optimize the design and site layout. So the final certification is scheduled for early 2026. Next slide. So the Camp for Water process, the Pure Water Southern California program is one of the first major initiatives that will be assessed through the Camp for Water process. So they will also be reviewing Sites Reservoir and the Delta Conveyance. But right now, they just provided a report, a preliminary assessment that was reviewed by the One Water and an application committee. The final assessment for the Pure Water project is scheduled for November. And the purpose of the Camp for Water assessment is to provide consistency in reviewing these types of projects through water resources, financial planning, climate adaptation, and board or decision making on a proposed project. The initial assessment for Pure Water includes 2 phases that would ultimately provide a water supply of up to 150 million gallons per day. So by 2035, phase 1 would supply 115 million gallons per day, and phase 2 would supply an additional 35 million gallons per day by 2040. This project would include several pipelines, service connections, and recharge facilities. The preliminary assessment of Pure Water included ratings on 6 areas that include reliability, resilience, financial sustainability, adaptability, and flexibility, and equity, and environmental benefits. Next slide, please. So last month, we provided you with an update regarding golden mussels. You heard a little bit about it earlier today, and I'd like to provide another brief update on this area. As a bit of background, golden mussels are an invasive species native to East Asia that were first detected in the Delta last October. And as a result of that, in December, the Fish and Game Commission added golden mussels as a restricted animal through emergency regulations. This action will ban possession, movement, and transportation of the golden mussel species. So by adding the golden mussel to the list of restricted animals, this could subject water agency operation to regulatory enforcement if golden mussels are found. And so conveying water where golden mussels are identified would be considered a form of moving. The current law specifically focuses on quagga and zebra mussel control, which allows Metropolitan to convey water on the Colorado River Aqueduct while effectively controlling the spread of these mussels. So as Augustine mentioned earlier, efforts are underway to broaden existing new and emerging threats. There is a coalition of approximately 40 water agencies with a shared interest in these control efforts. They are working on 2 sets of amendments to the current law, which would expand existing protection against regulatory enforcement to include golden mussels and other invasive species, as long as the agency has a self-certified plan for the mussel control. Also, it would expand requirements for monitoring and controlling efforts in reservoirs used for recreation to include monitoring and control of golden mussels and other invasive mussels. So the coalition is planning to seek the inclusion of these amendments to the budget trailer bill language after summer recess. In addition, there is interest in seeking funding for this request from Proposition 4. The coalition will continue to coordinate efforts with plans to come back to the legislature with a comprehensive solution for this next year. If we can move to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is the final slide. This is a water supply update. Included in the committee packet in the report are graphics for the water supply conditions.
Lord,
And today,
thank you, Jesus. Thank you.
yeah, today I would like to focus on the Colorado River conditions in Lake Powell. So this graphic shows the probability scenarios based on the Bureau of Reclamation's recent study on hydrologic conditions. The report indicates potential for Lake Powell to decline below 2 critical elevations in the very near future. The forecasted inflow to Lake Powell has been steadily declining throughout the Colorado River Basin due to hot and dry spring conditions. And right now, the conditions are reflective of the recent extreme conditions of 2021 and 2022, when Lake Powell and Lake Mead dropped to historic low levels. Lake Powell could drop below 3,525 feet next spring, 2026. And if this were to happen, it would prompt emergency drought response actions. By the end of 2026, the forecast is showing Lake Powell's elevation to go down as low as 3,490 feet, and then declining even further to 3,474 feet by the end of spring 2027. So if conditions remain dry, the elevation levels would see an incredible decline right around the time that the Colorado River Basin states would be operating under a new set of the post-2026 operating guidelines. Reclamation aims to complete the post-2026 draft environmental impact statement by the end of this calendar year. Reclamation has also continued to be engaged with the basin states right now during their negotiation, as Matt had mentioned earlier. And then the Interior Administration is strongly encouraging both the upper basin and the lower basin state to arrive at a 7-state consensus as they negotiate the post-2026 operating guidelines. So that concludes my update. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Chair Gray, I have a question for the staff.
Yes, please.
EJ, can we go to the, back to the graph on, page 70? My question on page 70, when it comes to the pure water, project, how much of that, when it comes to construction, on the facilities, how much of that work is within the West Basin, district? And I see the construction is going to start, fourth quarter of 26, and then all the way through to 28. But, yeah, like, I see the facilities that are mentioned. How much of those facilities are affected in West Basin?
Right, yeah, so
Yeah.
that's a really good question. In the service, West Basin service area, because it is in Carson, it's at the Joint Water Pollution Control Plant, sanitation district. And AJ, I don't know if you, or Matt, if you might.
No, the majority of the early phases of that project are going to be at the facility, and then the beginning of the construction for the delivery system, the pipeline. And of course, that would primarily be in Carson until they get it out. So what you see here, the majority of it will be within the West Basin service area.
That's the only questions I had, Chair Gray.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. DJ, the next item, please.
Madam Chair, that concludes our information calendar, and we have no closed session items.
And the next item is our remarks, comments.
Yes, that would be director's comments, future agenda items.
Thank you. Director's comments or future agenda items, Director Deere.
No comments, thank you.
Excuse me. Director Lapide. Bye-bye.
I just wanted to say thank you to the staff for their presentation and then especially the updates on the legislative part, whether it's the state or the federal government. Appreciate your presentation.
Thank you so much, and thank you. I want to echo what Director Lapide said, and all of us board members do appreciate staff for the work that they do. So thank you very
Madam
much.
Chair.
Yes.
Madam Chair, if I could add one comment for
Yes,
the directors that are here today, and of course, Director Gray, when you visit us for the board meeting, I just want to introduce our newest intern, Chloe Brown. She is undergrad at the UC Irvine and studying environmental science and policy. So all of our interns, you'll start to see them at each of the committee meetings. And as always, we'll be having them present over the course of the year. So you'll get a chance to not only see them, but hear them.
All right. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Go ahead, Director Lapide or Director Deere.
I just said welcome.
Good. Well, welcome. I think it was Corey and all of our interns. I'm sure you will learn a lot at West Basin, and we do appreciate your even having interest in serving as an intern with us. So with that, anything else, EJ?
That's it.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for the meeting this afternoon, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.